Shalakaya Chakshunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Jai Gurudev, welcome everybody. And today's satsang, as requested by all of you, is about procrastination and leaving our comfort zone. And I know this is probably an issue for everyone in the world. And as Guruji said, procrastination is fear of change. And I think just the nature of living, we go through upsetting experiences. And every time you go through an experience, you just want to sort of build a little nest around yourself to feel safe. And animals do the same thing. You just want to feel safe again. And the trouble is, you create that comfort zone and then you never want to leave it because you know it's a scary world out there. It can be challenging and we're afraid of leaving the nest that we've created. But as Guruji said, he's got a YouTube talk called The Nature of Karma. And he said, people are so attached to their fear, they're afraid to let go of it. So you build a cocoon around yourself that is called a comfort zone. And out of fear, you don't go out of it. But that comfort zone is poisoning you because this is not your true nature. So if you think about it, scientists are always telling us how the universe is constantly expanding, constantly changing. And if you refuse to change, you become like a lump of coal in the middle of this spectacular work of art that's being created. So when you learn to keep flowing and keep changing as the universe is flowing and changing, then life is magnificent. But if you just lock down, you know, pull all your stuff around you, you see those. I saw an amazing movie of this octopus, and it was on the ocean floor, and it was grabbing seashells, and it completely covered itself and made this little nest of seashells. And that's what a comfort zone is. You think that it's going to protect you, but it becomes a cage. It becomes something that traps you and doesn't allow you to live the life you were supposed to live. So if you think about it, what if the caterpillar that is inspired by the divine to create a cocoon, right? Go into this beautiful cocoon so that it will evolve into a butterfly. Well, if it refuses to break out of that cocoon, its life is ended. It will not go with the natural flow. It won't follow its destiny. So comfort zones are like cocoons that will allow you to burst out and become a butterfly. And I saw a really fun TED talk about a woman talking about this subject. And she wanted to shake up her life. She realized she was stuck. And this is a good tip for if you do feel stuck in a comfort zone, to do something that shakes you up. And so what she did, she was in China. She went to the tallest bungee jumping platform in China. And from the long shot they took of it, it looked like the thing was a mile up in the air. I don't know what its height was, but it was massive. And so she got the bungee cord around her ankles and they put her out on the platform, and you're supposed to dive headfirst off this platform, heading for the ground at the speed of light, and then this bungee cord snatches you just before you hit the bottom. And she looked down and she thought to herself, this is a mistake, I'm not doing it. And she turned around to leave, and they had very smartly put a sign up right at the platform for people who chickened out and wanted to turn around. And it said, life begins at the edge of your comfort zone. And I thought that is a brilliant sign for any of us to put up, is life begins when you step out of that comfort zone. As long as you're in that comfort zone, your life has stopped. And we've all seen it in, old people who survived the Second World War and the Great Depression. They create a little apartment or house and they decorate it a certain way, and that's it. They just, everything gathers dust, everything just sort of becomes moldy and old along with them. And they might as well have just died at the age of 50 or whenever it was they created that nest, because their life has stopped. They don't try anything new. They don't evolve. They don't stay in tune with what's happening with the world. And so this is, as Guruji says, comfort zones are toxic. You have to be so careful that you don't fall into that rut of, oh, I'll try something new tomorrow, that procrastination, I'll try it tomorrow, I'll try it tomorrow. So a great way to keep from that from happening is to constantly challenge yourself, constantly learn something new. And this is the value of joining like a spiritual sangha, a community, because as we know, Guruji never stops. He is changing constantly. He changes the mission constantly. You know, he may say one thing one week and change it the next week. So he is forcing everyone to stay fluid exactly for that reason, so that you don't become institutionalized. You don't become trapped in a comfort zone that you become afraid to leave. And from a spiritual standpoint, a lot of times the procrastination happens in your sadhana, in your spiritual practice, because you're not seeing results. You don't think anything's happening, but it's, to me, there's a couple of things going on there. On one side, the divine is seeing if you're serious. Like if you just start meditating or doing puja or doing any of these techniques and you don't see results in a week and quit, well, then you were just a tourist. You weren't seriously trying to create a relationship with God. And it's like any kind of dating, right? If you seriously want to create a relationship with somebody, you put time and energy into it. And it's the same with feeling that connection with the divine in your heart. If you don't diligently do it every day and show you're sincere, show that you mean it, then why, why should the guru, why should God waste time with you if you're, expecting everything to be handed over for nothing? And you read some of these ancient texts and you will read about sages and devotees who have done penance, who have done things for decades, if not hundreds of years, trying to get God's attention, to get grace poured on them. And they don't give up. They go and they go and they go. And there's just that heartfelt sincerity. So they keep going no matter what the results are. And if you procrastinate about doing a spiritual practice, doing something daily that will create that connection in you, then you're not going to get anywhere. You have to start. You have to, even if it's baby steps, right? Even if it means you get up a little earlier every day and do some chanting, Om Namo Narayanaya, do puja, do yoga. As long as you do something daily, that starts shifting any place that you're stuck, right? If there's a part of you that is just feeling trapped, baby steps will help chip away at that cocoon you've created around yourself. So Guruji said that he says the guru is emptying you of your fake identity. When your true identity awakens, you will start to shine, and that's just the beginning. So sometimes when you don't feel anything is happening, it's actually happening internally. And so your conscious mind may not be aware of it, and I've gone through that. I've been involved in practices, and for years it seems like I'm just robotically doing something and nothing's happening, and then all of a sudden it was like somebody had put me on a trampoline and I just shot up to a higher level. So you you can't question what's going on with your mind. Your mind is what creates procrastination, and your mind is what will trap you eventually because it keeps telling you, don't try something new, this isn't working. Um, you have to shut it off. You have to do your chanting, your Om Namo Narayana, and just diligently keep your practice going. And I heard a really interesting talk by Swami Keshava. And he's, some of you know, he's one of the young Swamis who lives at the ashram in Germany at Sri Pitanalaya. And he met Guruji as a young, I think he was 12. The whole family met Guruji at the same time. And he just knew this was his path. So he was diligently, when he was going to school, he would get up hours early to do his puja and his meditations, and he was so diligent. So obviously he was involved with Guruji in a past life because there was no question in his mind that this is what he had to do. And once he was old enough, he moved to the ashram, and he's in charge of the deities in the temple. So he and his twin brother are both at the ashram. And he doesn't, he says how a lot of his interactions with Guruji aren't like physically outward. It's more he gets the information internally and in dreams, which is basically what the Guru wants for all of us. He wants us to establish that connection through sadhana so that he can communicate directly with us, no matter where we are in the world. Because if you think about it, a guru has tens of thousands of people following, and he hasn't got time to physically phone everybody every day to see how they're doing. He needs us to create that internal connection so that if he does see us getting stuck or does see us procrastinating about something, you get that jolt. Like I will literally hear him in my head, get up, do something, go, try this, phone this person. And Keshava had a dream one night where he was walking with Guruji, and Guruji said, I'm going to show you what you would look like if you weren't doing your sadhana, if you weren't doing this daily spiritual practice. And he showed him a picture of himself as an older man who had just lived a worldly life. And he said he was the weirdest looking guy. And I just thought, what an amazing gift to be shown. Okay, you're taking for granted how youthful and vibrant you are. If you weren't on this path, this is how you would look. And I've even seen that in friends of mine. When I came back from India, some people who never got involved with the spiritual path and were just swept up in being successful in the material world, and they look 20 years older than I do. And everybody was shocked. We're all sort of staring at each other. How did you get away with not having to dye your hair and do all these things? And it's just the path, right? It's just constantly connecting to divine energy, constantly being aware that we are spiritual beings having a human experience, not human beings who are looking for a spiritual experience. So every time you shut down and just go into that safe mode, I'm just going to stay put and I'm not going to try anything, you are harming yourself more than you can believe. And Guruji said, as long as one does not surrender the mind, one is a slave to the mind. And this is the reason for procrastination. So, and I remember going through this when I first got to the ashram in India. This was when I was with the Shaivite tradition. And we had to be up for 4:30 a.m. yoga. And you could just see that whole dorm full of women with their minds running amok, going, oh, just roll over and go back to sleep. Oh, you don't have to do this. You don't have to get up. You could almost, it would be funny if there was a loudspeaker on everybody's mind at that 4 a.m. wake up call, everybody trying to talk themselves out of getting up and going and doing yoga. But the whole point of that was to break the mind, to get us up, to get us functioning and doing something early so that the mind couldn't take over and keep us trapped in the lives we've been in. And so I kept doing it. No matter what happened, I would jolt up and I would make myself stand up and move fast before my mind woke up, because it always woke up a split second after the alarm. So if I could get myself moving and up, it helped. And that's one of the tricks with overcoming that whole procrastination, um, not getting out of your comfort zone. So, some of the tips that are out there is to challenge yourself, learn something new, broaden your perspective. Go on a pilgrimage, go on a trip alone. A lot of times you need to do things alone to overcome these trapped feelings. You have to get out there on your own and become an adventurer. And when I was feeling trapped, I was going through a divorce from my first husband, and my first marriage, I believe, was karma, because it just seemed like there were loose ends that had to be cleaned up. And it was, it started and ended very quickly. So I was lucky that way. But I went down to Los Angeles to try and sell my screenplays. And I realized that I had still brought that comfort zone with me, that even though I was in Los Angeles, I was still behaving the same way. I was still putting the same trappings around myself. And so the odds were I would probably find another guy just like my first husband, get married again, fall into the same trap. And what happened was this idea was just dropped on me to go live with the homeless. And some of you have read my memoir, and there was, a couple of weird things that led up to that. But when the idea hit to go live with the homeless on Venice Beach, it electrified me. And I thought, that's it. I've got to do it. And I realized that it was the adventure I needed. I didn't need to go whitewater rafting. I didn't need to go through the Amazon jungle. I just needed to go stay on the street in the city I was in. And I didn't do it stupidly. I'd always traveled alone. So knowing that this could be a very dangerous place, I dressed very nondescriptly, stuffed my hair up under a hat so that I wouldn't draw attention to myself. All my skin was covered. And I had a little, sort of a duffel bag with my dad's old army blanket, and, some fruit and a Swiss Army knife. And I was going through an experience as close to being homeless as I could picture. And as soon as I got down on that beach, it was like God was in full bloom. The interactions I had with the people, everyone was so sweet and so kind. And word spread that there was a writer on the beach, and I had brought some notebooks with me. And people were just coming out of hiding to come and tell me their story. And every homeless person's story was magnificent and different. And it changed my life. It put me on the spiritual path. I ended up making a movie and writing a book based on that. And if I had stayed in my comfort zone, I would have been like every other struggling writer in Los Angeles. I would have been, hiding in some little place, depressed, maybe getting drunk, trying to, not feel so bad about this horrible struggle I was in. And so instead of sitting and allowing that depression to hit, I went and lived with the homeless, and it changed everything. So you have to be bold, you have to be brave, and say yes to life more, right? If you're all in your nice, cozy little place and someone suggests something new, instead of going, oh, I don't know, maybe, I don't know, I'll get back to you, and then you don't get back to them. Life is constantly lobbing these great ideas to you, epiphanies, and calls to adventure. And you have to say yes. You have to learn to say yes, even if it makes you a little nervous or giddy, because once you're out, once you step out of that comfort zone, you're flying. And I can't remember the name of the phobia. There's a condition where people become afraid to step out of their apartment. They physically cannot leave their place. They have to order in their food. and it's probably accelerating now because of the pandemic, but that's from years of not following your dreams, not allowing change to happen. So Gurji says, cut down all expectations and free yourself. Let go of things that are troubling you. If you analyze yourself, if you have anything inside yourself that is troubling you or stopping you, you have to let go. As long as you hang on to things that are troubling you, you will suffer. The earlier you let go, the quicker you will be free. So that's part of that thing about forgiving yourself, moving on, forgiving others, and staying present. Stay in the day that's in front of you and let it be a joyous, exciting day. And as they say, the Divine Mother is pure love, and she wants that love to grow more inside of you. When the love grows inside, you can see life in a different way outside of your comfort zone. The more you become this love, the more the fear of loss disappears. So you have to become positive. You have to let go of these fears because they're made up. It's your mind saying, oh, you should be afraid of this, afraid of that. And what I experienced was when the things that I was afraid of actually happened, they were easier to deal with than the fear of them happening was. So actually being in the middle of situations, you just you go into a different mode. You get adrenaline going and you handle it. But the fear of it is crippling. And I would much rather go through a fearful situation than just worry about it happening. Excuse me. So I'm going to open up our mics now and let's get a conversation going.
The light's behind you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Jai Gurudev.
Jai Gurudev.
Oh, I see you now. Thank you, Jai Gurudev.
Okay, Jai
Uh,
Gurudev.
well, I don't have many questions recently, but since we are in the line of these challenging stories, I also wanted to share my story coming here to Netherlands.
Okay.
Um, yeah, currently I'm here in Netherlands with the devotees from Netherlands and also Germany and Poland. We're quite mixed group. And how it all started 5 or 6 years ago. I was speaking with Gurudev. He was in Croatia giving darshan, and at that time, I really did not know what to do with my life. Like the relationship I had with a girlfriend broke. Job I don't have. It's you know, at home a lot of problems with family, and it's just like, you know, one of those a cause of God, where, you know, where he says, "Hey, like, look for answers." So Gurudev came, and of course, I wanted to ask him, like, what to do with my life. I'm lost. I really don't know anymore.
Mhm.
It's just too much. And so we started to talk, and one of the things he said was like, "So what you do?" I said, "I finished agriculture, and I would like to maybe come to Germany to work on some farm, organic farm, and be close to you." And he said, "You know, Netherlands is a very good country for agriculture. You should go there, you know." Oh, oh, okay. Thought about it and somehow accepted it, you know. And he said many other things about family and the future and the ashram, etc. But yeah, related to Netherlands. So time passed, and I was looking how, you know, because it was very hard for me. I did not know anybody. Um, I was in my own very depressive states and this inertia, like you mentioned, comfort zones, and I lacked willpower to move out of this in life, you know. So I would just sometimes come to the points when I would just cry and I would just say, God, why am I suffering this much? I don't know what to do. Please help me, you know, get me out of this place. And at that point, I was stuck in the village with my parents, like village somewhere behind God's legs, we say in Croatia. Nobody, nobody knows about it. And there's a young man with a heart full of fire and passion that wants to do something in life, you know. That was a terrible. I felt like locked in prison and like I did not know what to do.
Mm.
And so I could just pray and cry and step by step try to move out of that. And anyways, uh, then Gurudev um, called me to the ashram, and I was in the ashram for 7 months. And after coming from the ashram, things start to roll. And this is 3 years after he told me to go to Netherlands. Like it's not like that. I was just like, oh, I'm a great devotee. Let's go straight away. I like it took me so long, you know. And coming back from the ashram in Germany, uh, I was few months in Croatia again, and then a friend invited me to Slovenia, and that was a key point now.
Mm.
Uh, in Slovenia, I just had a ticket to go to Slovenia, uh, and okay, I need to tell this also shortly. I was in Croatia, and my friend is calling me, please come to Slovenia for a bhajan and kirtan with the Swami Kanjalochana. And I refused because I did not have money and I was tired of begging and asking other people to help me in life. So I just said, God, I need to be fair in my life. I don't want this anymore. Like, I don't have, I accept it. And so I refused. And she was persistent. She was like, no, you need to come, you know, like, you need to come here. I was like, no, I made up my mind. I'm sorry. And it's not going to happen. And she's again, you know. And then I just look at the picture of Gurudev at my altar, and almost in anger, I say to him, listen, Guruji, like, if you really want me to come, then give me a sign, you know. I was really tired of it. Like, if you give, I come, you know. And after like 5 seconds or 10 seconds, my mother comes into the room and she said, hey, I wanted to give you this money, like, if you need it. And I was like this, you know. Okay. So I looked to Gurudev. I'm like, so what? Now I need to go. Okay. And the money was exactly for the ticket one way to Slovenia.
Wow.
Exactly. And then I know without a doubt that he is pushing me. And this doesn't happen because my parents, anyways, were quite poor. They did not have much. And for some reason, she was now giving me that. And, so I tell to my friend, listen, this is a sign. I will come, but I don't have for the ticket back, you know, and I will need to ask you then at least, you know, paying for ticket back. I will return you when I have. And she said, okay, you know, great. So came the kirtan, and we had a nice time there. I spent some time in Slovenia away from my parents, and I needed some break. And then one day I opened the drawer in her house and I found Netherlands klomp, you know.
Ah.
Yeah, a wooden shoe. And in that moment, my heart started to beat like crazy. And it just told me clearly, like that jolt, it just told me you are going to Netherlands right now. And my mind was like, what the heck? Where you don't have any money, the ticket, where you gonna go, where you gonna sleep, you don't know anybody, like, are you crazy? What? And my heart was just like, you're going to Netherlands and you know it, and no excuses, you know. And the mind was panicking, like that kind of panic, like you don't see it often, but it's like, anyways, two parts of you, you know, the heart and the mind. And eventually I just knew it deeply in myself. I just knew, like, this is what I'm gonna do. I don't care how, I'm gonna be there. I just it's it. And so I
And
told,
that's an important step to get to.
yeah,
You know, for those of you listening, is when you feel something in your heart, you have to turn the mind off and
yeah,
just do it. Yeah.
yeah, just listen to the heart, because it is so crazy that you really mind will try to put you in comfort zone and convince you how world is unsafe, how it's not gonna work, how it's impossible, how it's crazy. But if you listen to the heart, it will create things that you never even dream in your mind. It will create possibilities. So I listened to the heart, and just that feeling of doing this, it was so right. And I told her, hey, listen, that ticket from Croatia, please just book me for Netherlands. I'm going straight away there. And she was like, what, are you crazy? Oh, I see the same things. Where you gonna be? You don't know anybody, you have a place to sleep, you don't have money. What the heck are you doing? And but I made up my mind and decision, and very quickly, yeah, she bought me a ticket, and I left. And before I left, well, this is actually grace of God, devotees, and people. She could not. She could not be at peace, and she said, "Listen, this is crazy, and I will suffer if I let you go this way. I need to give you this money at least for first days or weeks there. I give you this money just so you can manage, you know." And I was like,
Right.
okay, great. Uh, I was planning to go without anything, but when I came to Netherlands, I realized you dumb. If you went, okay, you would manage, but it would be much harder, you know. So it was
Yes.
the grace of God that He even made it a bit easier for me, you know. If you make a
Yeah.
first step, He make otherwise. The resting in Netherlands, just to finish, I don't want to take too much time. Things just miraculously were just coming. People, situations, the houses, the places, all small miracles in the next
Hmm.
year until we settled more here. And anyways, the story then continued. But just the fact that you go, you listen to your heart, everything else falls to place. Everything. Uh, it's just how it is. And this really made me understand that in life, if ever this calling comes, I know I will be taken care of 100%. You know, maybe it doesn't come many times, maybe once or twice, or who knows. But if it comes, just follow it. It's absolutely right. So take good at that. Thank
Beautiful sharing. Thank you. And it's in this day and age, it's so material. Oh, and he disappeared into a beam of light. Look at that.
you. Okay. Rest.
But yeah, our being in Kali Yuga, it's all material based. And so I know my family is astonished at how I'm living. You know, as a wandering sadhu in Canada, they cannot comprehend how these, you know, I'm in my new place, you know, the next new place. And everywhere I've been sent has been to people who have never heard of Swamis or Guruji or anything. And they immediately realized that they were looking for it. So Guruji knows how to send us out to places that will connect, right? He doesn't send us to a bunch of lug nuts who have no idea about anything and will make life miserable, right? If you are on the path, you are put in the places you need to go and you're taken care of. So it's, you know, you get glimpses of what Satya Yuga is when everybody was plugged in, everybody had a sense that they were just divine beings living a material life. So yeah, the more people hear about experiences like yours, I think the more they can trust that they can take that step out of the comfort zone, right? There is a safety net. There's a spiritual safety net.
Yeah.
Oh, dear.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the amazing thing about spiritual communities is the world becomes home, right? It's just astonishing.
Yeah, I mean, I always had this feeling that home is really where the people are that you love. So the more
Mm.
often I went to the ashram, the more that became my home because there were so many people there. It was just so wonderful, so welcoming.
Mm.
But actually, I had a question about the topic
Yes.
class. I actually wanted to ask maybe you could talk a little bit about the willingness someone needs to actually change, and when you're in a situation where you see that someone else is stuck, you see that someone else is maybe procrastinating and that they're in sort of this unhealthy situation, and but they're not able to change themselves or they're not able to see that situation for themselves, and you can't really help them. And maybe could you maybe talk about the willingness that someone needs to be able to first
Right.
see that they're in a situation where they need to change, and maybe also then initiate that change?
The thing that's very tricky with that is you can't tell anybody anything, right? People really have to approach you. And it's just like any of these fanatic religions that try and force they stand on the street corner waving their magazines, and it just makes people madder. So I grew up surrounded by some relatives who were indifferent. Like, I was surrounded by every wacky religion there was, and we were sort of in the middle. We were mountain people who were just spiritual. So I became very sensitive to having things forced on me. And what I've noticed is people get very defensive if you suggest their life isn't perfect, right? They, instead of going, oh, you saw that, wow, how can you help me? They go, how dare you, right? Like, you're screwed up too. They will just immediately attack. So all you can be is a great example. If what happens with me is people will come up to me and say, you're always happy. Like, how is that possible? And I'll say, well, I used to be a very moody person. When I was younger, I had highs and lows constantly. Oh, wow, how did you get out of it? And then it just becomes a gentle conversation. But you really can't, even though you've got the eyes to see and you can see that someone's stuck, you pretty much have to just keep quiet. Invite them to home chanting, invite them to come sing, and what will happen is they will start experiencing joy and want to know more about it, right? And I realize that's why Guruji's given us these little tools that are just baby steps for people and I've had Om chanting circles. I do it through the public library, and it's a drop-in. So people don't have to commit. They don't have to do anything. They can just show up at the library. This was before the pandemic, so once we open up again, we can do it. But people were free to just come in without having to introduce themselves or anything and just experience it. And a lot of times you'll have the newcomers just burst into tears at the end of the session and go, I was looking for something like this and I didn't know what I was looking for. So you're doing a lot just by offering these experiences, but it's really important to let people open up to you. You can't take the first step and say, I see where you're stuck. I'm not stuck. The comfort zone is very protective of itself. You can't tell me that I'm not perfect. So, and it can get dangerous. I had a man become very violent when I suggested that what he was doing wasn't correct. And, it got to a point where I couldn't talk to, he kept trying to come to my meditations, and I had to make sure he only spoke to me in a crowd because he was extreme. And, so I asked for advice, and it was like, don't cut him off completely because you don't know what he's going through. And it turned out he was dying. He had been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer or something. And he ended up having the nursing staff at the hospice contact me in his last days. And I went and saw him. So yeah, it's a very fine line. Just be available, be helpful. If someone asks you, speak to them. But I've learned from tough experiences that you can't push anything on anybody, right? When they're ready, they will be inspired. Like, that little voice will drop in and go, why don't you contact her? She seems to know what she's doing. Guruji will bring people to you unexpectedly. Does that help at all?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Jai Guruji.
Jai
It
Gurudev.
was lovely meeting you.
Lovely. It was really, I've been watching all of the satsangs, and it's very nice how you speak about experiences, and that's just extremely helpful to
Oh, good.
stories and to be able to relate to them and to understand those teachings from Guruji through your experiences. So thank you very much.
Oh, my pleasure. Well, and the thing that's so amazing is, all those decades of going through that stuff, I kept going, why are you doing this to me? Right? Like the turmoil was so massive. And then to realize now it was a gift so that I can talk to anybody. I can go into a prison. I can go into a battered women's shelter. There's nothing that's unrelatable. So it would be nice to get some warning, but that's not how the divine works. It doesn't go, okay, fasten your seatbelt. We've got 40 years coming up now. So I would give them a bit of a critique that, it's okay to let us know that this is all going to be worthwhile.
Yeah.
But it makes you realize that don't judge situations that happen to you, right? It may seem like it's your worst nightmare come true, and then you'll realize it was a gift. And it shows you're alive, right? We came into this game to have a wild ride. And
Yeah.
I think somebody asked Guruji about, we all want to evolve. We all want to go to heaven. We don't want to come back to this world. And he was like, what? It's boring up there. What? You're going to float on a cloud? He said, it's more exciting down here. So.
Swamini Pratibha, yes. Yeah. Do you know something about Vaikuntha?
Do I know something? No.
About Vaikuntha? No, sorry.
Well, it just, what Guruji has explained, that it's kind of the ultimate realm. But I remember one story that I found fascinating, and it was Paramahamsa Yogananda, when, there's those of us who are aware that Yogananda was a previous incarnation of Guruji. And his teacher was Sri Yukteswar. And I remember reading that Yogananda was so distraught that his teacher passed away in India and he couldn't get to him. He was already in America starting his mission. But at one point he was touring the US, giving talks, and he walked into his hotel room one day and Sri Yukteswar was there. He had manifested a body to have one last conversation with him. And so this was the gift that happens when you have evolved into higher realms. And so, I guess Sri Yukteswar put in a request to whoever the administration is up there, I don't know. And he was allowed to come back one more time in a body to talk to his student, Paramahamsa Yogananda. And Yogananda writes that he gave him this big hug and he wouldn't let go. And Sri Yukteswar was like, it is a human body, like you have to lighten your grip. And so they had a chance to talk and catch up, and a lot of it was private, but Yogananda did ask him, so what are you doing now? Like, where are you? And he said he was in a loka, so he was in a higher energy field where there were beings. We hear about how there's Devi Loka, there's all these lokas, realms where different beings in different energy fields live. And Sri Yukteswar was still a teacher. And he said, I'm still trying to help them move to the next level. But he said, the trouble is that they think they're in heaven and they're all so happy. I can't get any of them to do the work. They're all just, no, I'm good. They're floating on clouds. They're happy. And so he said it was actually harder
to work with these beings because the struggle of being in a human body was gone, right? They were in what an astral body, or I don't understand all of it, but he was still a teacher and he was still working with beings who were trying to progress to the next level. So we don't know how many levels there are before Vaikuntha, and only the God realized masters like Guruji know because they've experienced it. And I think for the rest of it, because the human mind was created to understand this realm, until we go into higher states of consciousness, like our mind will never understand what's going on. And I think that's why Guruji is limited as to how much he can even tell us about it, because it's beyond comprehension what it is, where it is. And so that's why I think life has become so spectacular being attached to him that, as far as I'm concerned, I'm good. I'm in Vaikuntha, right? I'm grandly all these greats connect with, has made me incredibly happy. So the idea of wanting to disappear into higher realms has left. And I realized that it was when I was struggling and feeling alone and misunderstood, that's when I wanted to just vanish. To have an adventure to be had. Now I'm happy being here for however long he wants me to stay put.
At 6 here.
Okay. Wherever you are in the world, yeah. So it was lovely seeing you all. Let's close with an Om Chanti, okay? Om Shanti 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 Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om.
Om Namo Narayanaya. Om Namo Narayanaya. Om Namo Narayanaya. Om Namo Narayanaya.